event, the first Bali International Conference on Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Udayana, Monday, July 10, 2023. Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua.
Shalom, nama budaya, dan salam kebajikan.
Good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first Bali International Conference Social and Political Sciences, brought to you by Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Udayana, Bali.
The Honorable Rector of Universitas Udayana, Profesor Dr. Insinyur Inyoman Gede Antara MNIPU,
The Honorable Dean of Social and Political Sciences Faculty, Universitas Udayana, Dr. Andus Inengah Punia MSI,
our respected speakers, Mr. Torker, Mr. Owen Pojer, Mr. Ketut Putra Erawan, and Mrs. Ras Amanda Gelgel.
Organizing Committee of the first Bali International Conference on Social and Political Sciences,
and all the conference participants who join online via Kisco Webex. Actually, our conference is streaming on the YouTube channel Udayana TV right now.
And of course, first of all, let us send a prayer to our Lord, who has given guidance and blessing to us. Therefore, we can gather here without any hindrance. So, prayer begins. Amin. The next one, National Anthem of Indonesia Raya will be played.
Next, please welcome our Dean of Social and Political Sciences, Universitas Udayana, Dr. Andus Inengah Punia MSI, to deliver his speech.
Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua, nama budaya dan salam kebajikan. Yang terhormat Rektor Universitas Udayana, yang terhormat para dekan dan direktur pasca sarjana, Bapak, Ibu, para narasumber, dan undangan yang lainnya, serta hadirin peserta konferensi maupun panitia penyelenggara. Selamat datang di Bali International Conference of Social and Public Science. Pada penyelenggaraan yang pertama ini, tema utama konferensi adalah The Future of Social and Political Science and Network Society for Sustainability. Saya sebagai pimpinan Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Udayana merasa sangat bangga dan terhormat atas antusiasme Bapak Ibu semua hari ini dalam acara pembukaan Konferensi Nasional Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Udayana. Dalam konferensi ini kita akan menyaksikan pertemuan para akademisi, praktisi, dan pemangku kepentingan dari berbagai belahan dunia untuk berbagi pengalaman, wawasan, dan pengalaman dalam konteks menjalankan peran ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik untuk mencapai pembangunan yang berkelanjutan. Konferensi ini menjadi momentum yang sangat penting untuk merangkul para ilmuwan dalam perspektif multidisiplin untuk merumuskan pemikiran dan langkah-langkah konkret sebagai upaya mencapai tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan. Bapak Rektor dan hadirin sekalian, dalam konteks dunia yang semakin kompleks ini, peran ilmu sosial maupun ilmu politik dalam masyarakat jejaring sangatlah penting karena ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik mampu memberikan pemahaman mendalam tentang interaksi sosial yang kompleks pada aspek sosial, ekonomi, politik, dan lingkungan dalam masyarakat. Dalam konteks pembangunan berkelanjutan, ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik memiliki peran yang sangat strategis pembangunan berkelanjutan. Maka dengan demikian tantangan yang dihadapi oleh masyarakat dalam merumuskan kebijakan yang efektif serta melibatkan masyarakat dalam proses pengambilan keputusan yang berkelanjutan. Konferensi ini menjadi instrumen dan wadah yang tepat untuk menyelidiki bagaimana ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik dapat memberikan kontribusi yang signifikan dalam mempromosikan konsep pembangunan berkelanjutan di berbagai tingkatan, baik dalam tataran masyarakat lokal maupun global. Bapak Rektor dan hadirin semua, mari kita mendengarkan pemikiran dan konsep para ilmuwan yang menjadi pembicara inspiratif dan praktis berpengalaman untuk berbagi pengetahuan mereka tentang inovasi, kebijakan, dan praktik-praktik terbaik dalam mengintegrasikan ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik dalam konteks pembangunan berkelanjutan. Kami berharap melalui diskusi mendalam dan kolaborasi yang erat, kita dapat menghasilkan gagasan atau ide-ide baru, solusi inovatif, serta kerangka kerja yang dapat diharapkan dalam upaya mencapai pembangunan berkelanjutan di seluruh dunia. Untuk itu, kami sebagai pimpinan Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Udayana menyampaikan apresiasi yang tulus kepada panitia, penyelenggara, para pembicara, serta peserta, dan semua pihak yang telah berkontribusi dalam persiapan acara ini. Tanpa kerjasama yang keras dan dedikasi yang mereka semua, konferensi ini tidak akan terselenggara dengan baik. Akhir kata, kami mengucapkan selamat datang kepada semua peserta konferensi. Kami mengharapkan kita semua dapat bermanfaat kesempatan ini dengan sebaik-baiknya. Serta mari kita menjalani diskusi dengan santai dan berarti, menjalin kemitraan yang kuat dan bekerja sama untuk mencapai tujuan bersama dalam membangun masyarakat jejaring yang berkelanjutan. Untuk itu, kami sekali lagi ucapkan terima kasih. Om Santi Santi Santi. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Terima kasih. Sukma.
Next, please welcome our Honorable Rector of Universitas Udayana, Profesor Dr. Insinyur Inyoman Gede Antara, M.Eng. IPU, to deliver his speech and officially mark the opening of today's conference.
Om Swastiastu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, namo buddhaya, peace and greeting to us all. Good morning. The honorable speakers, the Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, the lecturers, all the conference attendees, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Bali International Conference on Social and Political Science. To begin my remarks, let us submit our prayer and gratitude to God, because through His pleasing, we can gather together in this very special event. It is an honor for me to welcome and greet all of you today. Ladies and gentlemen, at this conference, we will witness a meeting of academic and practitioners from various parts of the world who gather here to share knowledge, inspire, and encourage the development of social and political science. This conference is an extraordinary event to deepen our understanding of social and political dynamic in this increasingly complex era. Ladies and gentlemen, Udayana University is one of the leading universities in Bali, is proud to host this international conference. With its stunning natural beauty and rich cultural heritage, Bali is the perfect place to host this conference. This island is where nature, culture, and people blend, creating a truly inspiring harmony. This conference is the right moment to appreciate the richness of Balinese culture while also exploring how social sciences can promote harmonious and sustainable development in today's network society. The role of social and political science in shaping society and political life must be addressed. In this era of globalization, the challenges we face are increasingly complex, ranging from social inequality, political conflict, and climate change to humanitarian crisis. Therefore, we need to continue exploring new knowledge and ideas and establish close cooperation to face these challenges. This conference is also a great platform to develop a solid collaborative network among the participants. Through dialogue and exchanging ideas, we can enrich our perspective, break through disciplinary boundaries, and create innovative solutions to problems faced by our society. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that during this conference, we can have productive, open, and meaningful discussion. This will be such a great opportunity to learn from each other, respect differences of opinion, and seek to build a deeper understanding of the complex realities that surround us. Last but not least, I would like to thank the organizing committee, the speakers, and all those who have contributed to the preparation of this event. Without their hard work and dedication, this event would not be possible. Once again, welcome to all of the participants and hope you will have a valuable and inspiring experience during this conference. Let's join hands, build bridges of knowledge, and bring positive changes to our world. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, those are opening remarks for the first Bali International Conference on Social and Political Sciences. The invitee who has other agendas is allowed to leave the room.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we have reached our main agenda. But before we start, allow me to introduce myself briefly. My name is Bulan Cantika.
And my name is Wiswanandana.
We will serve as hosts today.
We'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have a question for our speaker, please feel free to send it through the Ask Question box. Kindly use the following format. Write down your name, /name your institution, /your question.
And of course, the question in Bahasa Indonesia and English are both acceptable. We'll be answering selected question at the end of the session. To all our respectful audience, please take part in the whole session so that you will be able to generate the full benefits of each speaker. At the very end of this event, we will resend the link for the attendance list and hold a photo session.
The first Bali International Conference on Social and Political Sciences aims for in-depth discussion on social and political issues and challenges and the future of them from a theoretical perspective to collect scientists and practitioners to share ideas, opinions, and provide a comprehensive analysis of the future of social and political science to uncover the complex relationship between individual and larger social and political system that can help us identify ways to create a more efficient network for sustainability. Please welcome our speaker, Mr. Torker, Mr. Owen Pojer, Mr. Ketut Putra Erawan, and Mrs. Ras Amanda Gelgel.
Okay, so it is truly an honor for me, especially finally meet you in this special occasion. So good morning, Mr. Torker. How are you? Good. Selamat pagi. Selamat pagi, and of course, good morning, selamat pagi, Mrs. Ras Amanda Gelgel. Bu Manda, selamat pagi. Selamat pagi. Alright, remember each speaker will get 30 minutes for presentation time. Alright? So, before that, please welcome our first moderator, Miss Clara, lecturer at International Relation Program Udayana University, Science 2022 until present. Ninyoman Clara Listia Dewi, LDMA. Education. Indonesia Youth Leader Exchange Program Sydney and Canberra 2022. Kader Bangsa Fellowship 2022. Master of Art in International Relation Program at University of Gadjah Mada, Yogyakarta, cum laude 2020. Academic Fellowship YSA ILI Young Southeast Asia Leaders Initiative for University of Montana, United States of America, 2019. So please welcome Ninyoman Clara Listia Dewi, LDMA.
So thank you to the host today, and good morning to all the panelists and participants of today's webinar. My name is Ninyoman Clara Listedewi on behalf of Faculty of Social and Political Science, Udayana University. I would like to welcome you to the plenary session 1 to the first International Conference on Social and Political Science. Also, a very warm welcome to the speakers today, Mr. Torker and Mrs. Ras Amanda Gelgel, who will present their ideas and perspective on the future on social and political science in a network society for sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin these sessions, I want to introduce you to the speakers more deeply. We have Dr. Torker from Curtin University. Good morning, Dr. Torker. Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Dr. Torker is a senior lecturer in the Schools of Media, Creative Arts, and Social Inquiry, Curtin University, and also a director international. He was a former journalist who contributed to Australian, British, and Indonesian media and Dutch publications from The Hague, Netherlands, and also a founder and commissioner of BCI Asia Indonesia. The next speaker, we have Dr. Ras Amanda Gelgel. Good morning, Ibu.
Good morning, Clara.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
She is an associate professor in the Communication Science undergraduate study program, Faculty of Social and Political Science, Udayana University. She is the member of JPLID, a digital literacy activist network. She is also a former journalist in national and local news agency, and also an alumni of International Visitor Leadership Program, IVLP awardee in the United States of America in combating disinformation and freedom of speech online. Thank you to all the panelists that's coming today. So each speaker will have 30 minutes and we will continue with a Q&A session. May I repeat once again, each speaker will have 20 minutes and we will continue with Q&A session. And to all the participants who want to raise a question, please leave your question in the questions box or raise your hand in discussion session later. So to the Dr. Torker, now time is yours, please.
Okay. Selamat pagi, saudara-saudara yang terhormat. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. It's quite an honor for me to speak at the first of this conference series, and I wish the organizers every success and look forward to participating or viewing future conferences in this series. Most, if not all of you, will be watching this or engaging with this conference via the internet, and you'll be receiving data packages and sending data packages typically via a fiber optic network, perhaps with the final part coming through a Wi-Fi network or perhaps a 4G, 3G or 5G telecommunications tower. What I'm going to talk about today is the possibility of the infrastructure that carries these data packets, the possibility of that changing. So I'm going to talk about high-speed internet satellite services and some of the changes that are occurring in the world at the moment, and talk about a research project that I'm conducting with Dr. Irfan Wahyudi at Universitas Erlangga, looking at how the new satellite broadband services are being adopted in Indonesia and Australia, and really focusing on people working in and around that infrastructure at Earth stations in both countries. Okay, so my slides are up. Great. So what is an Earth station? This is an Earth station at Speedcast in Perth, and this is the kind of parabola that receives or sends a signal to a geostationary satellite, which sits at about 30,000 kilometers away from Earth. The reason we use geostationary satellites, the reason for this really goes back to the 1960s and the Cold War, and a decision that was made in the United States through negotiation with other countries and other partners, to develop an international satellite system that could reach and broadcast into communities around the world using this kind of technology. The United States at the time was reacting to the launch of Sputnik in 1957, which was a Soviet satellite which broadcast the first radio signal from space or from an orbiting spacecraft back to Earth. So the systems we live with today in Indonesia and Australia are very much a result of a rapid response or a determined response to the Soviet Sputnik success with broadcasting radio from an orbiting spacecraft. So we think about the development since the 1960s and how the two countries have responded to satellite technologies. Australia was a minor founding partner in Intelsat, which was the system set up in the early 1960s to broadcast television around the world. That was its fundamental role in the early days. Television signals couldn't be carried through the cable network. Back then it was a coaxial cable network, and it didn't have the kind of capacity that today's fiber optic network has. So Australia was involved with the United States and Japan and many other countries in Europe and across the world in the Intelsat program. So we can see that Australia was involved from the very, very early days of geostationary satellites. Indonesia was also an early mover, and it was the third country in the world to own its own satellite, geostationary satellite, the Palapa-1 satellite, which was an important project for Indonesia. So if we think about the countries that had a working, durable geostationary satellite in space, first it was the United States, second was Canada, and third was Indonesia in 1976. Since then, the geostationary satellites have played an important role in communications in both countries. Not so much in internet communications, but really television communications and important government communications. So the investment in this form of satellite, the geostationary satellite, sitting out at 30,000 or so kilometers in space, has continued from both countries, particularly through state-directed projects. So in Australia, we have the NBN Co, which launched Skymaster 1 and 2 in 2015 and 2016. And, whoops, if we go back one slide, back two slides. Okay, there we go, we stopped there. Okay, you will see that On the left-hand side of the screen, you have a 6.4-ton satellite that's set up to space at 30,000 kilometers away, and this would basically be relaying television signal, but also internet signal for remote communities. Indonesia has been working on similar satellites with its Nusantara series, the latest being Satria 1, which was launched a few weeks ago from Cape Canaveral, and this will be Indonesia's largest geostationary satellite with the most capacity, and has promised to try and improve internet connections, particularly for remote island communities. These are major investments in a technology that seems to be dating. And this was a response to a Senate inquiry about 2 months ago from the head of the NBN company in Australia, who was called in to speak to the Australian Senate about how the NBN company was responding to new technologies in satellite communications. And this is Stephen Rui, and this is what he had to say. When the first custom-built SkyMaster satellite was launched in 2015, it was cutting edge. 8 years later, we're seeing growing constellations of low Earth orbit satellites, or LEOs, which address a drawback of geostationary satellites, which is latency. In other words, if you ever have the torturous process of trying to make a phone call or a teleconference via geostationary satellite, there's a very long delay between the signal being sent from Earth 30,000 kilometers into space and then getting relayed back again. There's a substantial, noticeable delay in that. If we go to the next slide. Within the last year, 4,000 smaller satellites, which weigh about 1% of the weight of that SkyMaster satellites, these are 60 kilogram satellites, have been launched up into low Earth orbit space by the Starlink company from SpaceX. And these sit at about 500 kilometers into space. So by the time we send a signal up to these satellites and back using video conference, we may not even notice the delay in the latency of sending the signal and receiving the signal. This technology isn't new. Low Earth orbit satellites have been around. They were around and existed really before the geostationary satellites came into being, but they've never been used for public communication or commercial communication like they're beginning to be used in the last year. As I said, there are now 4,000 of these satellites in space operated by Starlink. Moving around, they orbit the Earth in about an hour and a half. They pass through Australia, they pass through Indonesia. If I'm taking a ship from Perth, where I live, say from Curtin University, I go down, get on a boat, travel to Indonesia, I'll be using Starlink on that ship, most likely using Starlink on that ship in Australian waters, moving through international waters, and it'll probably still be operating as I come into Indonesian waters. Officially, Starlink doesn't yet operate in Indonesia, but practically we know in fields like shipping, it does operate and performs a necessary function, important function for the safety of people in shipping. In Australia, Starlink already has Earth stations and operates widely. It sells its services to subscribers. And from this map, you may not be able to see, if we go back to the Starlink map, back one slide. Oh, okay, it's okay. We can see 4 Earth stations, or we know that 4 Earth stations operate for Starlink in Western Australia. The image, if you go back, go back a couple minutes, okay, go forward one image. Thank you. Okay, now the thing about Starlink is that it's taken up subscribers, it's won subscribers very, very quickly from the NBN Co in Australia, and I think is starting to radically transform internet communications via satellite. So on the roofs of the Speedcast building in Perth, and Speedcast is the world's first reseller of Starlink. It was originally a Perth-based company. It's now based in the US, but very much still has a presence in Perth. But if we look at the roof of that building, you can see the traditional geostationary satellite. They're the two big parabolas on the roof, and that compares to the little parabola in red in a dish, which can be installed by a homeowner in Perth by themselves without the need for a satellite engineer or a telecommunications engineer to be involved in setting it up. If we go forward one more slide. There are basically two pieces of equipment. There's the parabola dish, and here we have the unit, which you can fit in your hand, which basically converts the parabola signal into a usable signal for computing that can run through the internet. So effectively, this acts as a router. There's a cable going to the parabola, a cable going to the power system, and then you have an Ethernet cable going in the back of that unit. So you can set up a Starlink system in your house in about 10 minutes if you have a little bit of knowledge of routers. Okay, so if we go one more slide, this is the backyard, if you like, of the Speedcast Earth Station in Perth. It's filled with parabolas. And the question then becomes, for us as researchers, what happens to engineers working in this space? What happens to the telecommunications industries when you have a single US company providing the new LEO constellation services? And if we go forward one more slide. Okay, this is what happens. At the back of the block, there is a skip, and parabolas are being dismantled, and the fiberglass panels of the parabolas pulled off, and the metal sent back for recycling. So we're in an age of very rapid and radical change, which can be sensed physically. Okay, if we go forward one more slide. Politically, we're also in a time of change, and if we look at this map from Starlink of where it has its services, anybody who's done studies of history or international relations might look at a map like that and go, wow, that looks like something from the Cold War. And indeed, the way that Starlink is moving through the world and expanding its services, it does remind me as a researcher of something like the Cold War, where we have the US allied countries, and then we have perhaps the non-allied countries like Indonesia, which don't yet have a publicly available or a Starlink service yet available to consumers. The countries in light blue have Starlink operating. The countries in dark blue may have Starlink in the future, or may have it just for commercial or institutional services. And the countries in grey are unlikely to get, or Starlink says it will not be delivering services into those countries. So in a way, studying the development of and the rollout of this new satellite technology also gives us a glimpse to study our own culture and, if you like, the deep cultural sedimentation of, say, the Cold War. We thought that was perhaps in the past, but when you look at a map like this, it's like, oh my gosh, we've still got a lot of work to do in terms of world peace. Okay, so Starlink has moved very aggressively into Australia. I could buy the hardware and subscription, the hardware for only $200, which is immensely cheaper than getting an engineer out to design a parabola and install it. And the cost of the internet in Australian dollars is about $130 a month. And what's even more frightening is that, talking to a subscriber in Melbourne, in the city of Melbourne, this service seems to work more reliably, or worked more reliably during the tail end of COVID than the NBN cable system, internet cable system. And it's picked up about 120,000 subscribers in Australia in the last year, within the last 8 months or so, which is more. There are more subscribers now to Starlink than there are to the whole Sky Muster system in Australia, which tells you how radical and rapid this change is. So for us as researchers, we're interested in seeing what we can learn from nuances emerging in the change in the satellite communication systems in Australia and Indonesia, in order to understand something more about these systems, the culture around these systems, and also the culture of ourselves and our current social imaginaries. So we're interested in what nuances can be found in each territory in the rollout of this new system, what institutions, practices, and discourses enable these new nuances, And how might insights from our study further understandings? So this is all very new to us. We started talking about this project back in January this year, but began research in earnest only in May 2023. And that's because this technology is moving out and rolling out very, very quickly. So as I mentioned earlier, the Indonesian partner is Dr. Irfan Wahyudi from Universitas Erlangga. And we're confident of this project because we've worked together in the past. Back in 2019, we started looking at social imaginaries around the old internet cable systems, which were built between Banyuwangi and Broome in Australia, which was the backbone, if you like, of the world's first worldwide electronic telecommunications network with undersea telegraph cable. So our research approach is to learn about technological changes according to resellers, engineers, subscribers, and regulators. We will then collect, or in the process of collecting texts about substantial events and issues in satellite communications in the two countries. We're in the process of reviewing relevant literature, which is all very interesting. And what we'll do is we are setting up a corpora of texts for analysis, so we'll subject those texts to a very typical kind of media studies or cultural studies analysis, where we look at visual representation as well as the words and their relationship to those images. This is also an important project in research collaboration with, if you like, the return of the Cold War, as we saw on that map. There's also a return of barriers and challenges to researching internationally. So we manage this by having Irfan work with the data collection and analysis in Indonesia, and I do data collection and analysis in Australia, and then we meet periodically to discuss the broader findings. But we also keep the data that we work on in either country. So we're also having to deal with these kind of constructions and these hurdles. And then we come together, discuss and compare findings in the two countries, and hopefully we'll have something interesting to say. Okay, the first thing we know, and this is from our previous research together, is that Indonesians and Australians, if you like, have contributed to innovative international electronic communication systems from way back in the 1880s. This is with the subsea telegraph stations. We also know that from Japanese research in Indonesia before World War II, Japan viewed Java as a site of telecommunications innovation and manufacture, one of the key sites in the world for telecommunications. And when we think about the early adoption of telecommunications technologies or internet media technologies, Indonesia is certainly a leader and is always very early, as we saw with Palapawan satellite and the latest satellite in adopting current or new technologies. With our research, we want to centre Indonesian engineers working in Australia as part of that and not lose sight of them. So our first research meeting, if you like, was with Pat Mendro, who works as an engineer in satellite communications in Perth, because we know that from our research on the old telegraph system, the names of all the Asian workers working in telecommunications in Australia were lost due to history or lost on the public record. So we want to keep that front and centre and understand these networks and collaboration across these networks from Australians and Indonesians working across and collaborating together. International collaboration between engineers in Australia and Australia, ensuring that even the new Starlink system is really, really important and is ongoing. Broadly then, we've been able to see so far that Starlink has been able to enter the Australian market quickly, bringing radical improvements in broadband service to consumers, threatening NBN Co's subscriber base, which is the government telecommunications company's subscriber base, as well as local satellite engineering services. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, Starlink is working with Telkomsat in the background, but publicly the system is not yet available. There seems to be more resistance to the network in Indonesia, and greater hope placed on Satria 1 to compete with the new Starlink system. But we'll be watching this space, and we expect by the end of this year to get our to be able to submit an article with our first findings. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Torker, who already present about how the high-speed internet services is very important and how the collaboration between each country in the territory is also very urgent now to can provide very best internet services around the world for the people. So now we are going to go to the next speaker, which is Ibu Amanda, who will present also about how we can see the future of social and political science in the next future in the terms of the media and communications. So to Ibu Amanda, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Clara, for the time. And welcome to Bali, Mr. Tor. It's for your third time, fifth time? Maturnuwun. He can say Suksuma and Maturnuwun, so he's also Balinese, right? And thank you for your time, and everyone, thank you for this opportunity. Mr. Torker already spoke about the hardware of the internet, and now I would like to share about the software, or how the technology changed the humanity. I would like to share about the basic of communications and start with ideas and then thought and the way of thinking. Through the years and tradition, we believe that humanity, the way of living, is based on the way of thinking. If we believe, then we exist. If we have thought, then we exist. Even now, if you posting something in social media, then you exist. The way we act is based on the way of thinking, the ideas, the opinion in our head. But in this post-truth era, I would like to start this presentation by asking, do we have our own thought? Or is it made up by others and we don't realize about it? So this presentation is about consciousness. Next slide, please. Okay, as we know, what or who shape our thought? We believe that there are experiences, and then people, and then surrounding, and what we see, what we heard, what we read, and what we learn. But nowadays, we're not experiencing it by our eyes, our skin, our ear, our tongue maybe. It's all made up by others. We never know. Why is it? Because, next slide is about this digital transformation. No, we are not going to transform to be a robot or nothing, but we already heard about the AI and everything. But in this era of digital, we have different options of media. And then we have different options to interact with others also. Even we have different options in learning or even shopping. We used to read news that came from a newspaper, television report, and in the radio. But now, it came from our mobile phone, and then from social media that really different from before. We never know the real source is it the truth or is it not the truth, but nobody knows about it. Talk about the internet. This is the data in global data that we have about 8 billion people in the world, and then 5 billion people, or more than 50% of the population, is already using the internet and connected in social media is about 4.8 billion people. So everyone now in this world can be connected as long as they have social media and the internet. So this is the data that maybe show us that now it is important and it is easy to go everywhere and learn about everything. But what we learn, that's the point in this presentation. Next slide is about the internet adoption. As we see here that almost all over the world have connected with the internet. Almost more than 50% of the total population, except maybe in the Africa, has connected to the internet. As we see here in Indonesia or Southeastern Asia, we have 71.2% people in that area already connected to the internet. And the most is in the Europe, is about 97.3%, maybe only 6.7% people in Northern Europe not connected to the internet. So in the next slide, we see that it's almost about 6 hours and 35 minutes people using internet in this global. It's more heavier than watching television or just maybe reading books or listening to the radio. Listening to the radio is about 52 minutes. It's the difference is so we can see the difference here. So our thought is influenced more by the internet compared to the other media here. As we see in global report that people using time more in the internet, in the social media compared to the television or the radio. Unfortunately, it came with some issues also. People tend to use social media to gather information compared to reading book also. So our thoughts are more influenced by the internet, by the social media. The experience that we had in the internet is not in the real world. And the news that we see in the social media, most of all them is not from the media institution. So, and then the social media, or we said about social network site, has provided several new opportunities for social relationship, as these platforms are particularly suitable for self-representation and social interaction. So it is not surprising that SNS gained massive popularity worldwide in this recent past. But it has their own problem also, such as the most media that's spreading misinformation, and we still have heard about a lot of cases about bullying online, and then doxing or security problems, and then private violation issues, and then we have a lot of fake photos, fake video, overtouched photo or others. So, yeah. Everything here have their own problems. So how they influence our thought? The next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, thank you. How they influence our thought? Even this internet or social media or this information that we have in the internet influence the way we see ourselves. Let's take a sample of Instagram. For some users, it is important to have like, to have positive comment or viewers. We read news about how someone take their own life just because they get bullied and get negative comment in social media. The relationship between Instagram use and indicator of mental health, such as self-reported well-being, and then we see depression, anxiety, stress, alcohol and drug use, and the indicator of body image and disorder eating are being reported. Next slide. These are the example of research that show us that the internet, especially Instagram, influence the mindset of the way of thinking for the teenagers. What they see is sometimes beyond their capability. We often see in Instagram the relationship goals, the body goals, and others' goals. And the end, it came out with body dissatisfaction, insecureness, and unhappiness. It makes their opinion of life and how friendship, what is beautiful, are supposed to be what the Instagram offer. So next slide, please. And also the internet and then the social media also influence the way we see the world. As we know that there are billions of information in the internet in 1 minute, but like Eli Pariser said in his book, What the Internet is Hiding from Us, that there are some information are not giving to us. We never know why, because the internet also is the biggest media in spreading fake news and information. Talking about Eli Pariser, we also talking about the filter bubble theory and echo chamber effect. We learn about the filter bubble effect, and this echo chamber effect, as the internet always give us what we like, what we interested in, but not the other side of the story. We describe an increasingly common situation where the readers or the audience are only shown content that reinforce their current political or social views without ever challenging them to think differently. The cause of these echo effects come down to the machine learning algorithms that everyone knows about, the internet and algorithms employed by companies like Google, Facebook, and others, big company in social media, which aim to serve their user content that is tailored to their interests. So are you sure the information that being given by the internet is the whole information, or is it being divided by needs and by interests? And next, so as we see here that most of the people using the internet for finding information and then staying in touch with friends and family. So if the internet not giving all the information, they just giving what we like and interest, there's something missing there. There's something missing to be so your thought more richful. So what should we do? Next slide, please. So what should we do? The most important thing is have an information literacy. We know that there are some literacy such as media literacy, digital literacy, but the most important thing is how we act when we're facing information that came to us in the social media or the internet. We should have critical thinking, consciousness of the effect of the information that we share. We should aware of the others, care for each others, and make internet as a positive space and for common goods. This one, the next slide is one of the research that came out that the most helpful skill. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So research also came out with a result that most helpful skill in this post-truth era is the information literacy. This skill will help the netizen or audience to be inoculated against the effects of misleading information or other effect of the information that are not giving full by the internet. So by having this skill, we should be aware and we should be using the internet, as Mr. Torker also explained, for common goods and for humanity. And at the end of this presentation, I would like to wish and ask and hoping that let the light of literacy make our thought more thoughtful and make us to have pure mind, pure heart, and to do pure act. Thank you very much. I want to close with Balinese greeting, Om Santi 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 Om, which is called that peace, 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 damai, damai, damai. Thank you. Back to you, Clara.
Thank you very much, Ibu Amanda, who are already present to us how actually the internet nowadays really affects the humans and the people's habit, and also how they see perspective about social and political conditions in the world. So now we're going to the Q&A sessions. To all the participants that join in this webinar today, I will give you time to raise your hands to ask directly the question to all the panelists that we have today. So I will choose 3 persons who raise their hands to ask the questions to all the speakers today. Okay, Ibu Amanda and Dr. Kerr, Dr. Torker, we're still waiting for the participants who asked the questions today. So we already have one questions from Ibu Nazrina Suryani from Udayana University. She is a doctor and a lecturer in the Faculty of Social and Political Science, Udayana University. Ibu Nazrina asking the questions. The first question is about the Perth geostationary satellite can be accessed by Satria-1 Palapa. And now, a few after there, how we buy that small satellite, if not yet available, what is threatening NBN Australian system? So that would be your questions, Dr. Kerr. So now the time is yours. Okay, so I will repeat the question one more time. Ibu Nazrina Suryani would like to ask the question about your presentation. First, the Perth geostationary satellite can be accessed by Satria-1 Palapa now. And few after that, how can we buy that small satellite? If not yet available, why is threatening NBN Australian system?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Thank you, Nazlina. The way that satellites work, the geostationary satellites or the geosynchronous satellites, they move around in orbit around the equator, so far out deep into space. So most of the world can access those satellites from all times. So the Satria-1 satellite can be accessed from the Perth Earth station that I showed in those slides. Interestingly, officially you cannot yet get the Starlink system in Indonesia, but through our research we've noticed that on e-commerce sites, Southeast Asian e-commerce sites, there's already somebody advertising a Starlink unit for sale from Tibet in Jakarta for I think like 9 million rupiah. We know they're installed in ships coming into Indonesia, but officially you cannot yet purchase those units. They're not licensed yet for consumer use. Now the question will be how long it takes Starlink to get licensed in Indonesia. Through its relationship with Telkomsat, Telkomsat will provide Starlink services to commercial organizations and to government. It already has that capacity and is already doing that. And really the question is one for Telkomsat and for the Indonesian government, how soon and in what form it wants to make this technology available. Otherwise, please come visit us in Perth and we can show you the system.
All right, thank you, Dr. Torker. So we have Ibu Nazrina here in the webinar. So Ibu Nazrina, do you want to have a few further questions to the Dr. Torker, please?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear my voice, please? Can you, Clara, moderator?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kerr, how are you? Dr. Kerr, we met long time ago, maybe a few more back. And I brought you to Udayana University. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember.
That's the first time. Yeah, that's the first time that you came over to our campus. Remember?
That's it.
Maybe you've forgotten already. Yes. Okay. The further question is, up to now, still in my house, we install the parabola for taking such as the television channel of TV5 in France. And nowadays, the small satellite that you offer or you promote a little bit is going to available. Dr. Kerr, do you think that we can access the television in Australia? Like I remember, I like ABC channel, I like Prime, I like the other channels in Australia. So can we just purchase later on? And then is that expensive? Because for the satellite, we don't need to register or we don't need to pay monthly. Is it something that we have to connect all the time with the bytes or benchwidth that we have to pay? If you can answer my question, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. They're really interesting questions that help us to understand the impact of the system too. So, with the Starlink, I might turn that pause. With the Starlink system, if you were accessing that from Indonesia, let's say you sailed into Indonesia on a boat and Starlink system hadn't been turned off, basically Starlink satellites are moving across Indonesia all the time. Starlink publicly says that it switches off those satellites when they come over Indonesian territory. To the extent that that actually occurs in practice, we just don't know, but I imagine they would stay on for boats coming into Indonesian waters. So if that's the case, if you were in Bali and you had a Starlink satellite, you should be able to access the ABC News services, all of the sort of services available by internet app from Australia. I would not expect them to be kind of cut off using kind of a geo gateway in the same way that would happen if you subscribe through, say, Telkomsat to one of the traditional geosatellite services. That said, Indonesia's rollout will most likely be through Telkomsat, and Telkomsat may have a way of working with Starlink to make some kind of gateway restrictions. The thing about the signal is with Starlink, you basically send a request to the satellite. That satellite uses a beam technology to send a signal to another satellite that would then come down to an Earth station in Australia. It would connect with the fiber optic backbone of the internet through which the online television that you're after, the signal would basically come through that through the internet backbone, be beamed up to one satellite, transferred to another small satellite, and then down to your home. There's no technical reason why you can't receive information from Australia as if you were in Australia. It really gets down to the political negotiation, I guess, between Indonesian consumer demand, the role of Telkomsat, and the strength of Starlink. Starlink's preference would be to basically have open internet and have that access available to all Indonesians because it gives it a monopoly. And then once it has established a monopoly, its business plan relies on subscriptions to the Starlink service. So at the moment with SpaceX, if you look at its 20-year projected revenue, very little will come from its rocket launches. Its rocket launches will be a fraction of its future revenue, according to SpaceX. The bulk of the revenue will come from subscribers around the world in Australia, Indonesia, and other places. So Starlink's goal is to make the internet as accessible and as open as possible, because in 20 years' time, that's how it will be making its billions, perhaps trillions of dollars from those subscriptions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Torker. Very interesting to see how the collaboration capability between its stakeholders to present the very good internet services around the world. Thank you, Ibu Nazrina, who already joined us today in this webinar. So we have next question to Ibu Amanda. So the question goes coming from Nanung Widianto, Ambarukmo Tourism Institute of Yogyakarta, who are talking about the confirming informations. The question is addressed to Dr. Amanda. I'm really interested to your title. Do we own our thought? Connected to your data that the most people are opening internet for finding the information. But Bapak Nanung a bit doubt about it, because in his opinion, people in this digital era already have a lot of information coming from several ways. So some of them, including Bapak Nanung, prefer to use internet to confirm the information that they already have from other channels. So, Ibu Amanda, what do you think about that opinion? So, please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nanung, for the questions. It's so interesting for me to. I would like to share about the issues. I have to disclaim first that I believe that internet is an innovation, a very great innovation here in the end of this era. But and also every innovation have positive impact, but also it has negative impact. As I see your questions here, so I feel happy because you are one maybe netizen in Indonesia that have already the skill to verify the information, because we have digital literacy competency, and one of them is verification. Nah, but not all in Indonesian people really use this skill to verify what information that we had in the internet. Then we try to verify it with other source and everything. So thank you to be a critical netizen for Indonesian people here. But we should remember maybe the netizen that have these critical issues or believe that what we see, what we heard, and information in the internet, we should verify it first. So not a lot of people have the skill of that, and not a lot of people have aware that the information, is it misinformation, is it true, or is it not? So I believe that, yeah, maybe everyone not jump into the conclusion about what the information given by the internet. But thank you for verifying all the information in the internet. I think that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Amanda, for your answer to the question. So we still have two questions for Ibu Amanda and also for Dr. Torker. So the next question would be goes to Dr. Torker. We know that Indonesian and Australian contribute to innovative international electronic communication system. How actually the way to measure the collaboration capability between the actors and stakeholders to make sure their capability to build and manage network relationship based on mutual trust, communication, and commitment to make it happen to give and present the best internet services.
Great, thank you for that question. It's really at the heart of the I guess what motivates Irfan and myself to do this research. When we look at the system, like if I go back to Starlink again, it arrives in a box, actually as a black box. It's manufactured outside of the countries. It's fundamentally licensed, if you like, or it's technologically, its kind of initial license comes from the Netherlands, which is also interesting for Indonesia, and it arrives at your house and you install it, and you no longer need a telecommunications engineer to set up your satellite connection, at least in the Australian context. So it does threaten innovation as well. It brings about, it's a new technology, but in a way it does threaten the ability, potentially it threatens the employment of our current satellite engineers in Australia and in Indonesia. I guess what depends, there may be some change if one day, say, Starlink has a factory in Indonesia. I'd say it's very unlikely to have that in Australia. Having said that, we don't want to lose sight of the innovations happening in both countries. So in Australia, there is a space program. Australia's launched a small constellation satellite. There are a lot of small satellites already existing. When we look at Starlink's use of technology, those technologies aren't necessarily new. They weren't initially developed by Starlink necessarily, and rely on and may have involved many engineers from around the world in different countries. So it's really important that we keep investing in this area. I mean, an ideal situation, wouldn't it be great if there was an Australian-Indonesian satellite constellation? Bearing in mind that these constellations also create light pollution, electromagnetic pollution, and cause problems for people making astronomical observations. But what I would like to say, and what Irfan and I would like to do with our research, is to find those examples of innovation, but particularly in collaboration between engineers in Indonesia and Australia and how they work together, and show that in order for these contemporary nations to function in states that are so obsessed with often guarding their borders, they only really function because of the collaboration across the borders. And we want to focus on those collaborations, bring them to light, study them and learn from them, so to try and promote more of that collaboration, and that's what motivates us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Torker, for your answer for the questions. We still have one question to the Dr. Amanda from Mr. Teddy Arfiantono from Udayana University. For Mrs. Amanda, how do you think about post-truth era, which often politicians or citizens uses the media as a hate speech for politicians? Is there a communication ethics that provide moral and legal sanctions for this action? Very good question from Mr. Teddy.
Yeah.
Please, Ibu Amanda.
Thank you, Mr. Teddy Erviantono. Wish you were here. Yes, the war of political agenda also play in social media, not just in mainstream media. And yes, the politics is one of the most issues that are spreading through the hate speech and then the fake news and everything. Even my research in 2022 with some colleagues say that the politician and the public figure is the most propagators of hate speech in social media in Indonesia. Okay, that's really sad news, but the people said that they heard about the hate speech and that the fake news about politics is from the politician itself. Talking about the ethic, yeah, we have digital ethic also, but I don't really want to give this responsibility for the app, maybe the application or the platform. But I want to ask all the netizens, we can use the power of the netizen to give this propagator of hate speech sanction by reporting their account, maybe by saying that this person is spreading fake news, this person is spreading hate news, hate speech, and it can be done with us if we, the netizen or the audience, give positive and then active feedback to the platform. Maybe let's go and clean all the social media from hate speech by reporting if it really hate speech. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Ibu Amanda, for your answer to Mr. Teddy's questions. So we still have time and also a question to Dr. Thor Care from Liza Dwi Ratnadewi. So Dr. Care, 78.19% of Indonesian population from more than 200 million people here are internet users. Digital literacy around 38% of internet users, dominated with 3 platforms of one company, which is we all know Meta, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. And now compete with China platform, which is we already know TikTok. Kindly describe about internet user Australia. So Ibu Liza Dwi Ratnadewi, we want to ask you how actually the habit of the people in Australia to using the social media nowadays. Please, Doctor.
Thank you for the question, and I just want to defer to Rasamanda as the expert in this area. But I would say it's similar in Australia in terms of that ratio of the domination of Meta through Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. Don't forget that Meta owns WhatsApp. Obviously, TikTok has made huge inroads. We know that some of the younger politicians in the Australian Parliament, such as the Greens senators, who are often left outside of mainstream media, they have huge TikTok followings now, which has happened very, very quickly. The entry of TikTok into the Australian market raises really interesting questions of concerns over sovereignty and things. When it's Meta or it's Twitter, if it's coming from the US, the question of sovereignty, sovereign internet space tends to not be asked in public in Australia because of our history and the Cold War and things. But when the large Chinese players come into that space and establish such a dominant position, then the questions often around sovereignty start to creep up. They creep up in Parliament and different things because of the cultural construction in Australia. I'm wary of both services. I'm very, very wary of how much time is invested through them. The distance to management of those systems, very hard to bring a court case, an international court case, when there's a problem of misinformation, false information being spread through these systems. I would prefer to see local innovation at a city level, more engagement in kind of development of social media that's truly social, not antisocial. And I've been working with one of my PhD students over the years who was working in the very early forms of citizens media, back with indie media, back 10 years before 10 years before Meta came into being. There was indie media doing citizens journalism and things. And in many ways, to me, the internet media was much more social before social media came into being. And I just encourage those kind of developments, maybe local or networks of people developing their own platforms and getting away from these central platforms, if possible, because even as Russ Amanda mentioned, even if we start reporting people on Facebook for misinformation, when I look at how some of the Indigenous activists in Perth have been treated, their accounts are often shut down by the overwhelming far-right white population attacking Indigenous activists because they have the numbers. So they can mobilise thousands and thousands of complaints against an Indigenous person who might raise a really important concern in the public sphere. So these are really big challenges, and maybe Russ Amanda knows how to deal with them. Thank you.
And also we have a new platform now, Dr. Khan. It's called Thread. Yeah, Thread is like a compete platform to Twitter. So it's very popular right now. And I think everyone now from the Twitter platform goes to the Thread system. So it's very interesting to see. So we still have a question to Dr. Amanda. From your presentations talking about the echo chamber phenomenon, we know that echo chamber may increase social and political polarization and extremism. On social media, it is thought that echo chamber limit exposure to diverse perspectives and favor and reinforce presupposed narrative and ideologies. What is your prediction about echo chamber phenomenon in the next Indonesian election?
Wow, the questions. Thank you. Can I know who asking this question? I cannot see here in the.
The question from me.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Mrs. Clara, for the question. And I believe you can answer your own question, right? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Clara. My perception about the next election, I believe that people in Indonesia, especially the netizen of Indonesia, have learned from the last election, and then not just the last election, but the other election like from the Jakarta governor elections also. And I believe that Indonesians now are more critical and then more understand the difference. And then as we see when we take a side A or B, and we can see in the next years or the next 2 years, the politicians that are fighting now are become a friends. So why don't we here, as the audience, start with friends, not with being the enemy? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Amanda, for your answer for that questions. So we still have time and we still have questions from the audience and also from the participants today. The next question goes to Dr. Torker. We know that international innovation collaborations are associated with high innovation quality. Do you think cultural distance has a negative effect on the innovation quality of international collaboration, especially talking about the presence of the satellite and best services in internet connections?
Thank you. That's one of the best questions I've heard in a very long time. The cultural distance. I mean, we have cultural distance in our own within a city, within very close communities. I think in a way with innovation, the cultural distance can be really helpful. Because if I only work within my own culture, I can only see the world in one way, and I don't believe that way is universal. I believe that understanding of culture is followed by everybody in the world, unless I leave my cultural group. And I guess this can be within, say, an internet bubble, or it can be even living in a city like Perth, which is geographically very far from other major cities. For instance, on this trip, as soon as I come to Indonesia and enter a different kind of, a radically different cultural space for me, I start to have new ideas about technology and innovation and how things can be done. So I actually think having representations from diverse cultures within the process of developing technologies is better. When we look at facial recognition software, the problems that Meta had, like Google had in the US, it was due to a lack of physical diversity, and I expect cultural diversity as well. I think some of the antisocial problems in the internet with social media may not have happened had there been much more diverse cultures represented in the development of those technologies, because then you would have those voices from smaller populations, from minor cultures, represented and perhaps at the table and talking about, we don't want a really mass ugly populism continually attacking our culture because of its difference. So I would encourage intercultural communication and see it as a positive thing for innovation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Torker, for your answer for the questions. Actually, we see how actually the cultural perspective could contribute as well to the collaboration system between countries to provide the innovation quality of the collaborations. We still have time, and for all the participants who want to raise a questions, please leave your question in the questions box or just raise your hands. We still have question to Dr. Amanda. It's a very useful question for me, for everyone, I think. Actually, we know that new digital platforms have unleashed innovative journalistic practices that enable novel forms of communication and greater global reach that at any point in human history. But on the other hand, disinformation and hoax that are popularly referred to as fake news are accelerating and affecting the way individuals interpret daily developments. How actually the way that we can do to combat fake news and misinformation or disinformation?
It came from you, Mrs. Clara. Okay, thank you. How we combat the fake news from spreading from the social media? First, we have to aware that that's why in my presentation, I always, and then I prefer and campaign about this information literacy. About this information literacy is the most important thing, because when we have this skill, so we have to do, we know what to do, we know what to, and then what we should think when we had this information came in our social media or in our mobile phone. So if we have this skill, so we know that we should think that this is maybe not the truth. Or should I share this information? Where is this information came from? So this kind of skill we should have not just for adult peoples, but from teenagers, and then maybe from the students from elementary school. So me and my association, we call it Yapelidi, always try to socialize these issues, not just for the teenager and then for the adult, but also for the woman and then the school, elementary school students, to understand they should have this skill as early as they using the social media or mobile phone. And the woman is also the most important thing as the, what we call it, because motherhood, and in Indonesia we still believe that children is sharing their mobile phone with their mom. So if their mom have social literacy, information literacy skill, they should understand and then help their children to have and learn how the skill will help them to prevent, to have the fake news and then the bully online and the other negative impact from the social media and the internet. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amanda. So now we see how actually the family would be a very supportive and strong stakeholder to prevent any hoax and misinformations, firstly, in the first stage of the family. So the next question would be goes to Dr. Torker. Maybe this is the last question before both of you can summarize your presentations. We know that maybe the challenges to make it happen to the innovative collaboration is research and development centers and also the size of expenditure budgets. So both of them play significant moderating roles in overcoming the culture barriers and also to make an innovation collaborations. So in your perspective, in your research, what are other challenges that maybe we will face in the near future, talking about innovative collaboration to the satellites and internet services?
Thank you. Thank you. The questions are really, really good today, so thank you for that. In Australia, we've got a huge research and development investment challenge. Investment is at very low levels, particularly from the state, in development of, if you like, civilian technologies. The investment at the moment, because of that Cold War imagining that I mentioned earlier, investment has been pushed into military stuff, you know. And when I look at the development of international communications, whether it's NEC in Japan or what happened with the British companies coming into World War I, these moments of conflict, moments of war, tend to destroy telecommunications innovation. We're often brought up with a myth that these conflicts, new technologies emerge out of these wars. Well, you listen to if you read some of the interviews with NEC engineers, they lose their access to their engineers because they're mobilized into armies. They lose their access to resources because you can no longer access resources. And I think we're in this moment at the moment in Australia where we've seen this very big investment into AUKUS, away from the development of local technologies, away from useful civil technologies. And I think Australia has to really, I'm not going to talk about Indonesia. Indonesia probably has its own challenges, but Australia has some very, very deep challenges at the moment in how at least the Australian state invests in technologies. And my suggestion is this: if the Australian state is not capable of making the investments that it needs to make in civil technological innovation, then it really falls to the city councils and the state government. So I think now is a time for local government investment and real support for the kind of innovative sparks that can come up from very local places. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Torker. From your answer, we see that stakeholders have their own role to face the challenges for this innovative collaboration. So now we finally arrive at the end of this sessions. Very interesting discussions for today. So I would like to give a short time to all the panelists today to give a closing statement from your perspective to what you present just now. Please, to Dr. Amanda, you go first.
Thank you, Mrs. Clara. My final presentation is about let the light of literacy make our thought more thoughtful and make us to have a pure mind, pure heart, and pure act. For that, use the internet wisely. Read more books, everyone. Verify the information you get and care for each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Read more books and take care for each other. Now, Dr. Torker, please.
First, I'd like to thank Universitas Udayana for putting on this conference. I think it's very focused. It is extremely efficient and innovative. And speaking at this conference today, I'm very impressed by the organization and look forward to being involved in future, if possible, in this conference or other events like it at Udayana. I'd also like to mention it's a privilege. It's such a privilege to sit on the same stage as Rasamanda, and I feel very honored by that. I guess my closing words would be just to, encourage openness, an ethical approach to doing things, following Rasamanda's wisdom. I'd also like to take that into the space of innovation a lot more and encourage collaboration across the communities, and to not wait for formal structures that may not be capable of delivering the kind of cross-cultural, cross-community communication that really needs to happen. So go and be creative and be critical. Thank you.
Be creative and always being critical is the last statement from the Dr. Torker for our today's plenary session. Please give applause everyone for today's plenary session 1. So thank you to all the speakers and active participants today. We are so glad that we can have very good discussion in this plenary session 1. As your information, after this, we will have plenary session 2 and parallel session for the presentation. So don't go anywhere. Thank you, everyone. Stay healthy and back to the host. Good morning.
Tapi online. Jadi we do test. We do thank you for your participation for the first session. Before we continue the next session, let us give honor certificate to our speakers and the moderator as a token appreciation. The first one for Mr. Torker. Well, I get to the photo session. For 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much for Mr. Torker, and the second one for Mrs. Ras Amanda Gelgel. Okay, I will get to photo session. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, Mr. Ras Amanda, and the last one is Miss Clara as a moderator. Okay, I will get 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next session we will bring you is another interesting session. We have Mr. Awan Pojer and Mr. Ketut Putra Erawan as speakers and Ms. Radita Novi as moderator.
But before that, allow me to read our moderator CV today. Her name is Niwayan Radita, Master of Arts and Master of Philosophy. As for a personal experience, is lecturer in Political Science, Faculty of Social and Political Science, Universitas Udayana, researchers in the field Enhance Human and Nature in Bali, Indonesia.
And I remember too that each speaker will get 30 minutes of presentation time. And we welcome you to lead this session, Ms. Radita Novi.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Bapak Ketut Erawan. Okay, so thank you for having me in this conference. And this is the second plenary session for about maybe 40 to 50 minutes. And the presentation for each speakers is about 20 minutes. And after that, we will have the Q&A session for 30 minutes, I think. And now I will introduce our speakers. So the first speaker is Mr. Owen Main Podger, MR, and he is the Director for Governance and Accountability, Osana International Professional Associate of University of Canberra. And and he kind of lived over 30 years in Indonesia, so it's quite a long time, and over 10 years in Australia, 3 years in Singapore, and 1.5 years in Papua New Guinea. And his working experience is also in the University of Canberra about the disaster management, planning and budgeting, anti-corruption, simplifying license, and so on. And the second speaker for today is Bapak Iketut Putra Erawan, PhD. So he is our political lecturer in Udayana University, and he is also the executive director of the IPD. And his research, so he has many research in this past few years. The last one is about the multikulturalisme desa dalam kontrol negara. Okay, so we will start now with Mr. Owen Main Podger. The time is yours, Mr.
Thank you very much. Is the sound okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Selamat siang kepada semua. Mari kita maju ke slide pertama. Ada slide pertama di situ?
Ya, sudah terlihat, Bapak.
Jadi, jadi untuk prompt bagaimana? Bagaimana promptnya? Ya, maafnya saya tidak mengerti di sini. Bagaimana promptnya? Oke. Terima kasih ya. Jadi kalau saya nanti bilang next itu mungkin ya itu maksudnya maju satu ya. Swastiastu. Yang kembali kepada yang sebelumnya. Kembali kepada yang sebelumnya. Terima kasih. Mari kita maju ke yang berikutnya. Next slide. Om Swastiastu ya. Maafnya bahasa Bali saya kurang. Hari ini saya mau membahas hambatan yang membatasi pemakaian teknologi di pemerintah secara berhikmat. Pertanyaan saya begini. Kenapa ada begitu banyak orang Indonesia yang kreatif, apalagi di Bali, dan begitu banyak teknologi canggih untuk mengatasi masalah, pada waktu yang sama begitu banyak manusia dan pemerintah memperlakukan yang tidak berkelanjutan. Hambatan apa yang dapat diekspos dari penelitian saya? Maju. Ini berbeda. Oh. Di sini, maaf ya. Ada 3 cerita dalam makalah saya. Makalah saya panjang dan presentasi saya pendek karena saya hanya dikasih 20 menit. Dan peserta hari ini punya sisa hidup untuk baca makalah saya kalau di-download nanti. Saya tulis makalah agar peserta merenungkannya. Dan presentasi saya siapkan untuk peserta menikmati sambil pikir tentang itu. Jadi hanya satu cerita di dalam presentasi itu, dalam presentasi ini, dan cerita tentang jalan. Belajar dari jalan. Tapi sebelum saya bicara tentang jalan, saya mau bicara sedikit tentang dua cerita yang tidak disampaikan hari ini. Next. Saya ucapkan syukur. Pertama, saya salut makalah Kadek Wiwin dan Eka Purnama tentang Mal One Stop Shop di PMK Badung. Pengalaman saya di Mal itu baik. Tidak seperti kasus yang saya sampaikan sekarang. Ada 3 pejabat Badung yang bagian dari 2 cerita yang saya tidak presentasikan sekarang. Mereka Wayan Sudina, teman saya yang kaling di Jimbaran, bos beliau, Wayan Kardiasa, lurah di Jimbaran, dan bosnya lagi, Ketut Gede Arta, Camat Kuta Selatan. Mereka bertiga baik hati dan membantu saya waktu saya membutuhkan bantuan, dan saya ucapkan terima kasih. Next. Kadang-kadang mereka hadapi masalah. Tiga-tiganya punya naluri pribadi untuk melayani. Mereka melayani pemerintah karena mereka ditugaskan untuk melayani pemerintah, dan mereka melayani masyarakat karena ditugaskan untuk melayani masyarakat. Terkadang mereka terjebak dalam dilema ketika melayani pemerintah menyulitkan mereka untuk melayani masyarakat. Dan itu isi masalah yang ada di 2 cerita yang lain. You harus baca makalah untuk itu. Yang berikutnya, reformasi tidak gampang. Ayo, next. Ya tidak gampang. Pada tahun 98, saya tulis di koran The Jakarta Post bahwa reformasi seperti ortodontik itu kesenian untuk tarik gigi supaya teratur. Mudah sekali untuk omong bahwa kita mendukung reformasi. Mudah sekali bikin aplikasi baru. Tapi untuk tarik pemerintah dan masyarakat supaya teratur sangat sulit. Next. Kembali ke ceritanya, saya mulai dengan soal drainasi. Orang Bali tahu tentang masalah drainasi di jalan beberapa hari ini karena hujan banyak. Pada tahun 72, cukup lama yang lalu, saya jadi dosen honor di ITB, dan salah satu teman saya, Ari Mokhtar Pejo, bilang, lebih mudah mengajar air hujan naik dari jalan untuk masuk got daripada mengajar insinyur untuk merancangkan jalan supaya air mengalir ke got. Itu 51 tahun yang lalu. Cukup lama untuk mengajar insinyur ya. Pada tahun 99, waktu saya kerja dengan Risma di Surabaya, waktu dia masih pegawai Bapeda, dan kami bentuk suatu prinsip, jalan kering, got kering. Ya, tadi ini. Next. Itu dry road, dry drain policy. Air mengalir cepat dari jalan masuk ke got. Dan habis hujan, jalannya kering. Air mengalir pelan dari got, masuk ke kali, sampai habis hujannya, gotnya kering. Itu prinsipnya. Untuk ini jalan harus miring supaya airnya ngalir cepat. Mana ada jalan yang miring di Bali. Harap itu jalan tol nanti miring. Dalam kota harus ada selokan agar air mengalir ke got. Dan got harus besar supaya diisi banyak air, supaya tidak ada banjir di kali. Yang lagi, muncul lagi, next, next, ini supaya lebih cepat. Ada cara baru untuk lihat jalan. Prinsip, 1, pejalan kaki diutamakan. Nomor 2, truk kemudian. Nomor 3, transportasi umum. Nomor 4, sepeda motor. Yang terakhirnya, mobil pribadi. Kenapa sepeda motor sebelum mobil pribadi? Alasannya 70% kendaraan di jalan itu sepeda motor. Juga 80% orang mati di jalan lagi naik sepeda motor waktu ada kecelakaan. Mereka layak dapat banyak perhatian untuk membuat naik sepeda motor lebih aman dan lebih disiplin. Next. Berjalan kaki diutamakan. Kenapa? Karena orang yang berjalan kaki tidak naik kendaraan. Alasan pertama, cara pertama untuk kurangi jumlah lalu lintas, itu bikin trotoar. Kalau ada trotoar yang aman dan teduh, peserta konferensi ini sendiri akan pilih untuk jalan kaki untuk perjalanan yang dekat. Dan you akan suruh anak ke sekolah jalan kaki seperti masa lama, zaman dulu, karena aman. Dan Anda akan berjalan kaki ke halte untuk naik bis. Tanpa trotoar tidak ada transportasi umum yang baik. Truk menjadi prioritas kedua. Next. Karena ekonomi tergantung kepada truk. Dan aplikasi medsos bisa bantu banyak di sini. Makanan segar bisa lebih cepat ke pasar. Tiket ferry dapat dibeli tanpa antri berjam-jam atau berhari-hari kadang-kadang. Sopir truk bisa cari rute jalan yang paling cocok. Polisi dapat talang elektronik truk yang melanggar aturan jalan. Malah dapat talang truk yang berlebihan bermuatan sebelum injak jalan, baru keluar pintu pabrik dengan teknologi yang ada. Mari kita istirahat sedikit sekarang dan lihat yang berikutnya. Ini kita nikmati kesenian di jalan di Bali. Ya, saya dulu mau bikin buku kesenian ini, tapi toko buku tidak terima. Yang berikutnya, mari kita lihat suatu perampatan di UNUD. Mungkin ada mahasiswa di sini yang tahu lokasi ini. Apakah Google Map bisa bantu kita untuk bikin perampatan ini lebih baik? Berikutnya, lihat di tengah ini ada putaran di sini di tengah perampatan itu. Itu tanda bahwa tidak boleh diinjak roda dan kendaraan harus putar di luar lingkaran itu secara jaram jam. Yang berikutnya, apakah you bisa lihat yang bergarisan? Itu rambu juga yang tidak boleh diinjak roda. Jadi apa yang kita tahu dari sini? Yang berikutnya. Itu maksudnya mobil yang naik ke atas, maksudnya dari atas jalan ini, tidak boleh belok kanan, harus belok kiri masuk jalan Goa Gong. Jadi 95% kendaraan yang naik di sini dan belok kanan melanggar peraturan. kendaraan dari Uluwatu itu yang masuk dari kiri harus belok kiri untuk turun lewat kampus. Yang 5% yang lurus ke Goa Gong melanggar peraturan. Dan kendaraan yang dari Goa Gong harus lurus, tidak boleh kanan. Tapi separuh kendaraan yang keluar Goa Gong belok kanan. Bagaimana? Apakah ini benar? Lihat trotoar yang ikut ya. Ya di sini, di mana ada trotoar di sini. Di dalam 12 tahun saya tinggal dekat sini, saya tidak pernah lihat satu orang jalan kaki di trotoar di situ. Mahasiswa yang dulu di kampus di sana sudah tahu, tidak ada yang orang jalan kaki lewat kampus itu di situ. Ya. Dan yang kita tahu di Jalan Goa Gong di mana tidak ada trotoar, banyak sekali orang jalan kaki. Jadi tentang perapatan ini yang berikutnya. Next ya. Pikir kita. Saya menduga ada insinyur yang kasih tugas kepada tukang gambar untuk bikin gambar barker itu. Saya pikir ada orang yang mengawasi dia. Saya pikir ada orang hitung harga bikin catnya. Saya pikir ada pengawas ada mandor yang kasih tugas kepada kuli. Saya kira ada kuli yang catnya. Ada pengawas yang kontrolnya. Setelah itu kita tahu sampai menteri-menteri yang cek kalau sudah siap untuk G20 lewat jalan di sini dan tidak ada komentar. Malah saya pikir banyak dosen dan mahasiswa UNUD yang tidak pernah komplain tapi siap melanggar terus. Mari kita lihat yang berikutnya, next slide. Mari kita pikir tentang helm. Turis mengadu kepada polisi. Kenapa turis yang diberhentikan karena tidak pakai helm? Padahal banyak orang lokal tidak pakai helm. Jadi kenapa ada aturan yang mengatur harus pakai helm? Alasan sederhana. 80% orang mati di jalan di Bali, ya, kita tidak tahu kalau tidak pakai helm. Yang itu naik sepeda motor. Ya, nanti saya cari informasi berapa banyak itu tidak pakai helm. Hampir pasti semuanya. Aturannya ada untuk keselamatan. Dan polisi lebih suka menyelamatkan turis daripada menyelamatkan orang lokal. Dan turis lebih suka kalau orang lokal diselamatkan daripada mereka sendiri. Gimana? Mari maju lihat yang berikutnya. Iya, lihat halte ini. Tidak sambung dengan trotoar. Mari lihat yang berikutnya. Kalau lompat bisa turun ke jalan, tapi saya sendiri tidak bisa naik ke halte ini. Yang berikutnya. Ini bisa lihatnya. Bis masuk ke halte dan harus berhenti dengan kesenjangan 80 cm di antara bis dan halte. Saya tidak bisa lompat 80 cm. Kecuali bisnya maju dan mundur bisa dekat. Tapi saya tidak pernah lihat bisnya mundur di halte ini. Yang berikutnya. Kalau kita tahu di depan McD, di antara McD dan KFC di Jimbaran. Di sini ada penyeberangan untuk pejalan kaki. Kalau kita mau lewat penyeberangan ini, kita juga harus nyebrang tamanan sebelah kiri dan tamanan sebelah kanan. Siapa taruh di situ? Malah beberapa minggu yang lalu dicat kembali. Siapa buat itu? Yang berikutnya. Ada lampu hijau di jalan, seberang jalan. Sama waktu dengan ada lampu hijau untuk kendaraan lewat. Yang berikutnya supaya kita lebih lihat lampu itu. Ya, lampu hijau untuk berjalan kaki, masih ada kendaraan yang lewat. Yang berikutnya, kesenian lagi. Kesenian Bali, indah sekali. Oke, yang berikutnya. Ini halte yang tidak punya tangga. Bagaimana naik ke situ kalau hujan? Licin ya? Pakai kursi roda nggak bisa naik ke situ. Ibu hamil tidak bisa naik ke situ. Yang berikutnya. Yang berikutnya lagi. 3 tingkat jalan. Ini tentang rakyat harus sadar. Pak Jokowi bilang, rakyat harus sadar bahwa pihak yang bertanggung jawab atas pemeliharaan jalan adalah pusat untuk jalan nasional, gubernur untuk jalan provinsi, dan bupati dan wali kota untuk jalan lokal. Tapi masyarakat sadar bahwa perlu presiden untuk mengatur perbaikan jalan seluruh Sumatera. Kesimpulannya, mari berikutnya. Jadi remarkable conclusion. Tidak ada orang di negara ini di bawah presiden yang bertanggung jawab atas konektivitas dan mobilitas di daerah. Jokowi lah yang harus bertindak agar masyarakat lokal punya akses ke pasar. Dan pada bulan Maret, Jokowi lah yang memutuskan percepatan perbaikan perhubungan di daerah. Saya yakin pemerintah pusat sudah lama mengawasi kerusakan jalan di daerah. Tapi harus tunggu presiden bertindak. Yang berikutnya. Kesimpulan lain yang mengherankan saya juga adalah bidang politik dan peraturan perundang-undangan, apalagi dengan situasi politik kita. Dan di slide sini saya sampaikan makalah yang baru dicetak di majalah dari Universitas Brawijaya. Saya sarankan semua bacanya. Atau tunggu beberapa hari lagi dan baca kesimpulan di koran Jawa Pos. Yang berikutnya. Mari kita mempelajari 3 reformasi dari Jokowi yang lain. Hanya 2 tingkat eselon. Itu agar non-struktur jadi profesional. Apakah sudah kita mulai punya profesionalisasi di pemerintah? Apakah kita sudah punya ahli lalu lintas yang ahli trotoar perjalanan kaki sebagai prioritas utama? Ya, prioritasnya bukan trotoar. Prioritasnya manusia yang jalan kaki. Kedua, kinerja. Solusi diutamakan. Sudahkah kita mulai utamakan solusi dengan hitung efektivitas dan hitung anggaran untuk ukur efisiensi? Belum. Ketiga kolaborasi seperti Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja yang lupa kolaborasi dengan rakyat. Apakah kita memiliki budaya kerjasama semua pihak yang kita membutuhkan agar dapat solusi? Yang berikutnya, kembali ke tema. Yang ikutnya, perubahan cuaca. Walaupun tema kita berkelanjutan, saya tidak sebut perubahan cuaca. Saya penuh semangat tentang perubahan cuaca. Malah tahun 89 saya mengadakan lokakarya di Ditjen Cipta Karya tentang hal ini. Tapi sekarang saya sudah lansia dan tidak lama lagi perubahan cuaca tidak akan jadi masalah untuk saya. Itu masalah siapa? Yang terakhir, tidak ada konklusi di paper saya. Tidak ada kesimpulan. Sekarang untuk cari kesimpulan dan solusi jadi tugas para peserta. Tapi mohon baca papernya dan boleh hubungi saya kalau ada pertanyaan tentang tulisan itu. Maafnya saya pakai bahasa Indonesia. Damai, damai, damai. Terima kasih.
Ya, thank you very much. Terima kasih sekali, Bapak Owen. Sangat, I think I need to use English in here, even if the speaker is using Indonesian. So I think thank you very much, Mr. Owen. It is very interesting, the topic about the obstacle to using technology wisely in the government. And as I point out, there are, first of all, there are so many violations in road users. And then there is this kind of a statement, the dry roads, the dry drains in Surabaya. So I think it's a very good statement. And Bapak Pojer also analyzed the roads in Indonesia, in which we need to use or make trottoirs for the pedestrians for their safety. Okay, thank you very much, Bapak, sekali lagi. And the next one is Bapak Erawan. The title is about doing political science in the global South, other mirroring, emancipating, and practicing assemblage. So the time is yours. It is 20 minutes presentation. Thank you, Bapak.
Thank you. Is my time 20 or 30 minutes? I just want to make sure.
20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. Thank you, Pak Pojers, my new friend now, for coming to Indonesia. For you have been here for so long time, Pak, yeah. So you're much more comfortable using Indonesian than English. I use English because I just want to communicate my point to much more wider audience than Indonesia. The topic I select, which is have the similarity concern, Pak, about what is the happening with Indonesian politics. But particularly, I want to focus on the theme today, which is the future of social and political science. Do we have future? That's my question. And then I try to respond it by doing it, not just preaching it, because we already did transforming political science in Udayana University more than two years now. So, doing political science in the global South, I call it other mirroring, emancipating, and practicing assembly. Why I choose this point? Because like Pak Pojer mentioning that there's so many problems we face in reality and nobody care. When I came to Indonesia around 2003, from my training in United States, I realized there is a big transition of learning happen in the university. Some people say that it's a neoliberalism. Some groups of experts mentioning about privatization, materialization. New millennial come to the campus as our student. So many problems. So how to respond to that? Doing political science in the global South, that's what we should do. Because when we read an article, my presentation will be about how many? Introduction, learning for the global South, teaching in the Global South, guiding research about the Global South, and reflection. So I just try to focus on three things. My introduction may be too small for the reader or participant there, but I just try to share my idea about an introduction. And when I say next, you do it, but stop it now there. What I try to share is like this. Political science or social science in general in the Global South lose its more essence, its character, the political. We take for granted teaching. You come to the class, the teacher, the students, the processes is really boring in some point I see. And it's really not communicating the word political. Political means you able to grasp the problem, respond to the problem, and assess the comparative experiences not only in Indonesia but many parts of the world. Do we communicate as mentioned by the first two speakers? Because globally, yeah, can we transform global political science or social science in Indonesia particularly from our engagement now it's so open. When I read most of the handbooks, research report, books, and many others on the political science, particularly or social science, they thought that the problem is not essential, not fundamentally affect the essence of people in the global south. No. I read that, okay, studying or doing political science is just reading a book, find the main problem, solve it through the Western or global North point of view, and follow the standard mentioned by so many journals, developed in the global North, and then you are doing political science. I thought that is not the way to do it. So when you responded using metaphor of road, we also now fixing the road at the political science and social science at Udayana University. So there are three ways of responding, how the penetration, hegemony, domination, and then all of the knowledge we get from the global North. One is other mirroring. Other mirroring means that you just imitate what the North give to you. The most you can do is refracting, make it suitable to your context. Makes comfortable for you. Second one, emancipating. Forget the North. Listen to your own voice. Listen to your experience. Transform your experience into the knowledge. Give a voice. Give the political a chance. Make the academicians, students, anybody studying in the global south become academic and so activist at the same time. Otherwise, the jalan will be damaged and nobody care about. Continue. Let me start learning for the global south. So I try to use so many new work now, report, books, debate, showing the voice of the global south. I didn't want to give you intention that we are rejecting everything from the north, but the voice from the global south is also capture and use seriously to educate the global north. So do we are in the global south. So learning the global south meaning what? Yeah, need reflection, need to focus on our experience, need to be critical to our own. Otherwise, we are too romantic. Or everything about Bali is perfect. Everything about Indonesia is good. But as Pojers mentioned, no. If you are critical, if you use knowledge, no. We need to excavate our problem, find a solution, and be critical to ourselves also, beside to the knowledge development itself. So learning the global south, I give you 3 examples here. One is the work by our friend from Latin America, Centeno and Lopez Alves. She tried to, and they tried, the two of the author here, tried to capture what happened in the Latin American countries, particularly in Brazil, and Argentina, Chile, and others. Scholars there who studying social and political science, what they are doing is only reading the books from the North, the Western, and imitate the story and the history of the North and perceive that as the truth to be directly to be a goal of the process of learning. Centeno and Lopez Alves mentioning, no, not that's the way. You need first doing and reading it and using it as a mirror. Reflect to yourself and then whether you can use it or not. The second book, which is changed my way of seeing epistemologically, ontologically about political and social science, is a book by Sosa. This philosopher write a lot of books, but the global south, from his point of view, the Sosa Santos mentioned and Meneses in one of his fascinating book, saying that people in the global south not only need to reflect to the what is the North doing, but you need to listen to your own experiences. That's why emancipating as a word come. So learning from the global south, meaning that you need to emancipate your experiences and transform into the understanding of the new knowledge. The word like a buing piver, for example, meaning that in Bali it's called rahayu, Pak. Rahayu is beyond welfare. Rahayu is not material thing. It is also substantively philosophical and also spiritual. Rahayu means that your welfare is grounded in your own destiny to be a part of the creature and creation. So the word rahayu is much better to be used than just GNP per capita or any other UN measurement about what is supposed to be do in the global south. So learning the global south, first you need to reflect. Do it as another mirror. Second, like the Sosa Santos and also Meneses mentioning about, okay, transform it. Use your own experiences into your own knowledge. The last one, which is practicing assemblage. So now we are going from Latin America to become emancipating. Many work now in Egypt, Tunisia, and also some in the Central Asia, Kazakhstan and others now read a really good book about how to emancipate their experiences into a new knowledge. And then the third way to respond it is by practicing assemblage. Practicing assemblage means that you mix everything and put it together and claim it as knowledge. That's what we are doing in many parts of in Indonesia. So philosopher like Cesarino and many other also mentioning about the Tinali, for example, writing about why people in global south try to mix everything from the report on the road to the satellite debate into the experience of how Jokowi got elected. Now I want to be repeated by candidate from PDIP, for example. All of those can be claimed as a political science, and you mix it without clearly having a boundary between which one is the more proper and the other. But the point is that makes it the political as this sense. Okay, that's the first thing. Learning, and then learning is problematic for people global south, but we try to invent it at the Udayana University, how to learn it by learning the experience of Latin America, the Middle East and North Africa, and back to our countries, Indonesia. And those three are learning from mirroring, emancipating, and we call it assemblage. Now, what about teaching? I'll give you just one or two examples because my time is please continue. Continue. So after we are learning, now we go to the teaching. What is teaching at the global south? Particularly, I give you example from Continue, Pak. Continue. Next. Teaching. Okay. Teaching at the Global South is basically try to utilizing our experiences, adopting methodology critically we assess from the North, but on the same time also crafting theory from our own experiences. It's tough thing to do because there is no books, no handbooks, no methodology, nothing from the Global South we can use. And then the language is basically English, colonial language. So I'm agree with you. We use Indonesian, but this is unfortunately the way we communicate broadly or globally. Continue. I give you one example of my classes. We at political science, Udayana University, we had a class which is exemplify the three approach I mentioned before. Other mirroring, for example, when I teach a class on Latin America in Indonesia, in Latin America at Untuk classes, I use a lot other mirroring. We try to combine the analysis of, for example, about the Venezuela cases. How is the politics in Venezuela? We compare with the Eastern Europe. We have cases on Brazil. We compare with the Indonesian cases of transition and the difficulty of labor to become like a collective, conducting collective action. Second class, which is I want to give you, which is emancipating element. We had a class called Politics and Development, Politics and Government in the Global South. In that class, we try to ask each of the students reflect the experience of Global South countries and then focus on the knowledge developed from there. We got somebody mentioning about how Tanzania have Ubuntu knowledge and then pursued as a new knowledge from the South. We got a subaltern perspective from India. How Chakravarti Spivak, Hobi Baba, and any other perspective now dominated the Global South debate about that. And the last about assemblage. We got so many classes, we call it assemblage. Because, for example, the politics and government in Southeast Asia, when we learn about Myanmar case compared to Philippines case compared to Hong Kong case, we have no way of comparing, but we need to learn about that. That is the practice of assembly. We just try to mix it and let it the reality that tell you like that. Okay, the last part I want to mention is about, continue, but after teaching, after learning, teaching, now I ended my elaboration in, continue, next. Guiding research. So when I transferred the knowledge and when I asked the student to develop knowledge, and when we collaborating, try to review what we know in the class, now we come to the point of what is that knowledge, whether the knowledge is transferred to the student. Student in Indonesia, particularly in social science, they need to finish and got their degree after they write a thesis. Yeah, scripsi, we call it scripsi. Scripsi is the toughest element of students in Indonesia try to finalize. How to put the political science in the Global South and the new knowledge, which is so tremendously important, new, and with all of the difficulty to develop it, become a guiding principle of research and student. I give you three students. One of my students tried to reflect the experience of Bali, comparing with the Michel Foucault work, and try to see how is the three way of analyzing social science can be used to analyze the policy of family planning in Bali. Yeah, because Balinese governor encourage Balinese to go back to the family planning policy to having 4 kids, and this student tried to analyze where, how, and when this discourse come emerge into policy, and using the perspective of knowledge slash power. Second is technique of governance, and the last one is about the practices, how to the processes in government try to lock in this policy into the mind of the people. Second, students try to connect between activism, student activism into the writing of the thesis. And then she wrote about the student activists at Jurnal Perempuan, which is activist and also academician, and how to not allowing the wall between academic and activism prevent her to coloring all of those two. So Ayu, for example, write about that. And the last point is about assemblage. One of my students write about, which is your interest, is accountability. Why the Indonesian corruption agency like a KPK have the difficulty to function? How is the power game that played? So the analysis is about power from the government. From the government itself is not unified, homogeneous entity. It is so many authorities inside determining the fate of Indonesian KPK. And then she tried to understand it, why KPK will be ended in the difficulty to function and ramified process. Let me conclude because my time is up. How to doing political science in the global south? When you ask question, this question is my answer to the theme for today. Theme for today is, where is the future of political science and social science? And whether the technology and also the sustainability of their own functioning able to be guaranteed. My answer is so difficult to enabling those as a linear way of thinking. We need to see it as a complexity issues. At least political science and social science can be located into three positionality. One is mirroring the North, responding to the North, reflecting the North. Second, emancipating themselves, build their own knowledge, try to challenge the North, transforming the epistemology and ontology of the existing knowledge. And the last one is try to put everything they know and try to see the context and complexity of that. I think that is the way to transform political science now in the future. And that's the way to respond to the university now filled with so many politics, administration, you name it. We forgot to study, we forgot to learn, we forgot to research, we forgot to be critical, we forgot to be academic activism at the same time. That is the wrong way to make the future of political science and social science in Indonesia. That's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for Bapak Erawan. It is a very interesting topic about doing political science in the global south. So I think I will summarize it a little bit. So there is the technical teaching that actually in the global south, we need to be active in the communication in the class. And there are three ways of responding domination. So the first one is other mirroring global north. The second is emancipating. And then the third is practicing the assemblage. Yeah, thank you very much for our two presenters. And now we will go to the Q&A session. There are three questions. So the first one to Bapak Owen. It is from Ibu Nasrina. And she said that, I'm glad you really understand the psychology of the Balinese or Indonesian period. The sense of responsibility for public facilities is heavily borne by the local government or central government. Civil society as users irresponsible. And she was a master graduate from the ANU, or Australian university, whose city is made into ACT. So the question is that, does this hub collaboration with the PU have to be changed or increased for heads of the village who have roads or public facilities in Indonesia?
Yeah, I'm afraid I have got maybe not a popular view about this. In 2008 and 2009, I was heading a small team from Fakultas Hukum UI, giving advice to DPD RI, including advice on pemerintahan desa. Rancangan yang disiapkan pindah dari komite kami ke komite namanya PPUU, dan di situ mereka ganti semua tidak setuju di dalam DPD sendiri. Jadi pekerjaan kami tidak kemana pun. Malah muncul tahun 2014 undang-undang untuk desa yang punya semangat besar karena memberdayakan desa. Tapi istilah akuntabilitas tidak muncul satu kali di dalam undang-undang itu. Dikasih banyak uang, tidak bilang untuk apa, dan tidak atur akuntabilitas. Gimana? Malah diatur untuk semua Indonesia yang sama. Tapi desa di Bali tidak sama dengan yang lain. Di Papua tidak sama dengan yang lain. Yang berbeda dalam undang-undang itu besar jumlah penduduk. Jadi di Bali mereka bikin rekayasa untuk adakan desa adat yang ada di undang-undang itu. Tapi pelaksanaan di Bali tidak sesuai dengan undang-undang itu kompromi. Yang untung di Bali ada banyak manfaatnya. Tapi soal dengan fungsi pemerintahan desa, nomor satu itu tidak akui bahwa desa ada LSM, Civil Society Organization, yang punya hak khusus untuk atur. Jadi desa bukan bawahan dari pemerintah kabupaten dan kota. Itu mitranya. Kerjasama masyarakat, kerjasama pemerintah, supaya bisa berhasil ke sesuatu. Jadi bagi saya ide bahwa kita harus meningkatkan peran desa dan kepala desa, saya sangat setuju. Tapi di dalam sistem yang ada sekarang, bagi saya agak sulit. Nah, saya kira cukup ya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Owen. So I think the main statement is that accountability is not being put in the law, and desa adat in Bali, maybe we can put it being manipulated so that the people can use the funding. So we need to have the civil society organization to manage the funding. Yeah, I hope it's correct.
Masalahnya bukan civil society berperan, itu penting. Konsepnya dulu yang bermasalah. Bahwa uang itu uang rakyat. Yang diberi dari pemerintah, mungkin bukan dilimpahkan atau turun seperti uang untuk pemerintah daerah, tapi dikasih kepada pihak yang badan masyarakat sendiri. Dan itu uang masyarakat itu bukan untuk lapor kembali ke inspektorat kabupaten atau kota. Tapi supaya itu diakui itu uang negara harus lapor kepada nasional Tapi itu uang rakyat yang harus dilaporkan kepada rakyat secara profesional. Jadi inti nomor satu itu konsep dari uang dan konsep apa itu desa dan konsep itu bagaimana akuntabilitas. Jadi banyak masalah di sini. Maaf ya.
Thank you very much. Maybe I will recorrect my statement is that the concept of money, people, and also needs to be corrected. Yeah. Thank you very much for the answer. So we move to the second question. It is from Perwita Suci from Universitas Islam International Indonesia. So she said that, thank you for very interesting research with raising the Global South topic. So this is for Bapak Erawan. She has a question. In fact, so many Western scholars are interested in analyzing political phenomena in the Global South, and their research results are accepted as global knowledge. How do we, as Global South scholars, deal with this reality, and how we can produce our autonomous knowledge as a Global South scholars?
Yes, this is a really important question from Permita Suci, asking a question, okay, when the possibility was prepared in the realm of political science and social science development for the Global South, why the opportunity is not utilized in proper way? Why still the North scholars, Global North scholar, voicing the voice of Global South? Can the Global North voicing the Global South voice? Is the question so important from my perspective to be put in on perspective? My answer is like this. Can the Global North become the voice of Global South? Yes or not at the same time? It's just the question like, can a male, a boy, become a feminist? Do they understand women? Because they are not descriptively, they are not women. Can they be a feminist? That's question. Let's put this by answering this argument. Because the question is two. One is that can the Global North voicing the Global South? Second, how should the Global South compete the Global North when all of the infrastructure of knowledge, be it university, the best one, be it journals, all of the books, publication, and people at the Global South were dominated by administrative and all of the tedious job. I'm teaching 11 classes now, and that is crazy for people in the Global North seeing it. So my answer is like this. Yes, Global North can become a voice of Global South if they acknowledge it from the beginning. They try to become a Global South voice for the sake of trying to become a part of this movement. But they are not representing the Global South. Yeah, because when we read all of the most deep and analytical and also perspective given by Global South scholars, most of them are located now living in the Global North. Chakravarti Spivak, for example, for the perspective of feminism, or the name is South Asia, but she is teaching at Columbia University, if I'm not mistaken. So do others scholars. So if the Global North scholars try to represent and put the perspective of Global South, that is really good. Because emancipating, try to become the voice of the subject of the Global South is supposed they are doing. Michel Foucault, for example, or Misal focus was Derrida, Laclau, and you mentioned it, post-structuralist expert. All of them living, working, have the privileges of global north. So if they are now transform themselves and not transform, maybe from the beginning they are seeing themselves as the voice of movement in the global south. Yes, they are part of the group. So global south is not geographically strict, because in the global north there is a global south. There is a women from the lower class. There is a black movement. There is a minority there. There is also poor Western, which can be categorized as a South in the North. Okay. What about the global South now? How the global South should respond, and why they have difficulty to transform what they are experienced to become a knowledge? Because of the way we are making and functioning our university. University now filled with classes, administrative projects, and standards, which is nothing to do with the knowledge. From my perspective, that's the way we need to do our main job now, is enabling people in the global south reoccupying the space they're supposed to have. They should transform their university first. And they should work with the students, university, and the leadership at the university, and making a chance for enabling the problem to be responded. The problem is ontologically, epistemologically, and practically, in terms of practice, are so devastating now. So if you want to check where is the voice of the campuses, why most of the good research come from institute or center outside of the university, because university has the problem and we need to fix it together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bapak Erawan. So because our time is left a little bit, there is one question for Bapak Owen and two questions for Bapak Erawan. Maybe I will kind of combine it. So for Bapak Owen, it is from Rati. So she said that it is really show the fact that public facilities are made as projects, not as society needs. In your presentation, you said about climate change. Regarding to your topic about technology in the Indonesian government and how you relate it to the use of Google Maps system, can you describe more on how you can relate between climate change and the system of the road drainage? Thank you. And another one is for Bapak Erawan. So it is from our student, Andre Wahyu. So he asked, as about what you said in class pass, there is a lot of problem in global south or the third world. In Edward Said view, global south looks as an exploitation country, donor recipient, and something else. Knowledge as a path to hegemony and dominating global south countries. So start from dominating of people's life, government, knowledge, culture, and etc. In a decade, global south political scientists against the global north dominating by new theories that have been created. As a youth, how are our contribution in global south, particularly in Indonesia, to increase our political thought in the practice or in class? And then the second one is from Bapak Teddy. So according to your presentation, do we have to start analyzing the political practices of southern countries by combining structuralist and post-structuralist perspective? Is it including the very interesting case presented by Mr. Owen Podger? Okay, thank you. That is our question. So I think the first, maybe Bapak Owen.
Terima kasih. Waktu saya mulai presentasi saya bilang presentasi saya untuk dinikmati dan mendorong pikirannya. Dan paper yang saya tulis untuk direnungkan. Kasus tentang drainasi jalan sebetulnya bukan tentang drainasi. Karena saya bisa kasih ceritanya agak sama tentang halte, tentang TPST, tentang catatan sipil. Begitu banyak kasus yang saya bisa sampaikan. Itu yang pokoknya orang tidak mengerti tanggung jawab. Bahwa tanggung jawab seharusnya bukan bertanggung jawab untuk buat yang orang bilang, tapi untuk buat bagian saya untuk mencapai yang harus dicapai. Itu fokus kontribusi saya kepada keberhasilan. Kalau kita masih punya sifat gila peraturan, bahasa Inggris gila peraturan itu reglomania. Gila peraturan itu mematikan rasa kritik dan juga mematikan pikiran tentang bertanggung jawab atas kontribusi saya kepada hasilnya. Jadi nanti kalau kita tidak ganti dari sifat reglomania ini, tidak mungkin kita mengasih dan buat kontribusi Indonesia kepada climate change. Untuk itu yang paling penting sekarang, tahun 2025 setiap daerah di negara ini harus menyusun rencana jangka panjang 20 tahun ke depan. Jadi topik pertama yang seharusnya di kampanye tahun depan dan mulai udah seharus jadi apa yang kita punya tanggung jawab untuk buat supaya menghadapi climate change. Itu prioritasnya tinggi sekali. Saya kira cukup.
Yes, I tried to respond to these two important questions. One is from Andre Wahyu, asking a question about there are so many problems we have in the global south. Why is that? Because knowledge, particularly social and political science, is part of the political economy packages, which is come and penetrating, affecting, hegemonizing, dominating, sidelining, and generalizing, and you name it. There's so many problems we face in the global south, and some of critical scholars, I'm unluckily at Udayana University, I met so many students so critical. They are leaders of movement, they are leaders of student movement, women student groups, and some of them are really active and pushing the question in the class based on their experience in the field. So their question is like Andre Wahyu question. Okay, when the exploitation of political economy affecting our state, affecting geopolitically, how can students, teacher, classes, learning, research do anything to do with that? Because this is a giant we need to face. Put in the perspective like this. Lily put in the giants. Yeah. Why the giants can be defeated by the so many small group of people doing collective action? Why? How? What make this is Barrington more work come to mind? Barrington mentioning about revolution is not emerged through big idea. It's come from the small idea, solidify and become a rock, crashing all of the problems, all of the big ship. So revolution comes from the small thing you do. And my answer is that, okay, when we want to respond to the exploitation of political economy, geopolitics, and you mentioned it, start from around us. Transform your class into politically embedded, into the political. Make the readings able to bring the activism and way of transforming politics. And the last one, when you write research, do it seriously. And that you start a small revolution from your side. And then you become a big from our university. The question about, from Pak Teddy, about should we have the new perspective, combining what the Western perspective is, like structuralism, post-structuralism, and creating the new one? Yeah, that's a question we always give to our student and ourselves, and our partner and the political science network. Because structuralism, post-structuralism, most are derived from the experience and history of the Western civilization. Can we contribute to the knowledge production by reflecting to our experiences? Maybe after the post, maybe come back to the structuralism. That is, I give you two examples. When I read the work by Hamid Dabasi, try to put the critics on how the MENA or the Arab Spring were perceived by intellectual in the global north as a failure. Hamid Dabasi saying that no, from us, from Egypt, Tunisia, Aljazair, and many other parts of the North Africa and Middle East, there is nothing fail, because we transform the word dignity into political project. We make the dignity as our identity now, as identity of the youth in the Egypt and Tunisia. I have been a chance to meet them directly so many years and interact with them. And so do now the voice from the Afghanistan, Iraq, and many others, which is failed by state building made by United States and their counterpart. Because of what? Because of the voice of people there is not taken seriously. The word dignity, meaning 5 elements, was understood by the Western only one. Dignity means human rights. Human rights is not enough. Human rights need to be expanded into cultural rights, religious rights, particularly welfare rights. Human rights and in the meaning in the broadest way, in the deepest way, that is the way to do. So structure, post-structure, post-structuralism, and any other new element, we need to try to reconstruct it now. Yeah, that's my position about how to respond to the exploitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bapak Erawan. There is one who raised a hand from Dini Suryani. Ibu Dini Suryani. Okay, maybe she doesn't want to ask. Okay, thank you very much for the 2 speakers. Maybe for the participants, you can applause in the chat room. And there is one comment. Thank you, Mr. Owen. It suits Dr. Erawan that it doesn't need to be romantic, but more emancipatory. Assemblage is used with accountability to the people. So well done to the speakers, as she said. And for our last session, maybe Bapak Owen and also Bapak Erawan, maybe you can summarize the presentation for our closing statement.
Terima kasih. Closing statement saya, Mungkin yang saya harus omong waktu mulai itu bilang, ini luar biasa upaya UNUD untuk mengadakan konferensi pertama seperti ini. Saya lihat berapa banyak perubahan yang di sini. Perubahan nomor 1, itu bahwa ada lebih banyak waktu untuk tanya jawab. Dan saya kira ini dampak karena pakai sistem elektronik ini. Jadi salut kepada UNUD untuk ini. Kesimpulan yang kedua, kebanyakan orang yang ikut hari ini mungkin sekarang ada di akademia, tapi nanti banyak sekali, mungkin jauh lebih banyak dari separuh, akan jadi praktisi full-time atau part-time. Jadi Bapak dan Ibu peserta akan punya peran untuk mendorong perubahan di negara ini yang baik, karena lebih mengerti masalah-masalah yang dihadapi. Semoga sukses kepada kalian semua. Terima kasih.
Okay, to close my remark, I just want to read some point I already finalized in my paper. As a preliminary effort to reflect on the experiences of doing political science in the Global South, my aim is to attempt to overview the positionality of scholarship in the Global South, interfacing the Global North in terms of knowledge production. 3 processes to present of the practices of doing political science and social science in the Global South, such as learning, teaching, and training, would be sequentially discussed. Learning from the Global South is a combination of various activities of researching, reading, and reflection. Learning utilize varieties of resources, particularly major recent literatures and journals. In the Global South, scholars prepare resources from various sources, enable themselves also to see the complexity and ambiguity of political science. They try to reflect, they try to emancipate, they try to be assemblage. Doing political science through teaching in the Global South has its own dynamic. Positionality of the being the mirror, making alternative and reassemble variety elements manifest in various experiences in my teaching. And my question is always, how are these positionality being translated into the practices of teaching in other part of Global South? I want to learn more from other experiences. And the last one, doing political science through guiding students to conduct research in the Global South, intriguing and the same time challenging. My historical, I think, mission is just try to embed the activism inside of this new young mind beside academic element. Why it is important? Because we want to create human and humanity inside of the university, which is filled by emptiness, boring, and also administrative activities, making the existence of student, teacher, and the learning process meaningless. So I hope the conference today enabling us and rekindle our sense of academic mission and activism at the same time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for both of the speakers. Okay, so I will take it back to the host.
We do thank you for your participation in our second session. Before we continue to the next session, let us give a certificate to our speakers and the moderator as a token of appreciation. The first one for Mr. Owen Proger. Please the operator to show for us, and please give your best smile, Mr. Owen. I'll count on 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you so much. And then for Mr. Erawan. Please the operator to show for us, and I'll count on 3, 2, 1. Oke, terima kasih Bapak. Thank you so much. And the last one is Ms. Radita Novi as a moderator. So please the operator to show for us. And please give your best smile, Ms. Radita. All right. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, Ms. Radita.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
In addition, we would like to thank you all the participants who have been with us since the beginning of the webinar until now. On behalf of the organizing committee, we do apologize for any kind of inconvenience arise during the webinar. Hopefully, this webinar brings a lot of insight and information that can be implied by all of us.
And the certificate will be sent to your email after you submit G form that we shared before. We will also share the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences profile video, which might be shared with your colleagues.
After we finish our plenary, we will have a 30-minute break before continuing at 12:20 at the parallel session. For all presenters, please join the breakout room by clicking the participant and entering the designated room based on the schedule in the program book. If you have any question, please contact our operator through chat the box. Thank you.